Okay, so this is the weekly meeting for the Monitor APM team for December 11th, 2019. Yeah, Dove, you have a couple things on the agenda if you want to get started.
Yeah, I want to start by walking the board of the 12.7 plan, just to make sure all the issues are clear. We don't have any other discussions, so we can lock it for the next iteration. Okay. So, just give me a second. I'll share. So apparently when you open the link in the incognito mode, then all the security issues disappear.
I like it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I found it yesterday. Okay. Oh, check this out. David, this is what I see since yesterday. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing picture. Yeah. Okay, so obviously the coming version I'm hoping will be lighter. Most of the time we started with like 30-ish issues. Now we are down to 17. And again, the focus of the release is still logs. So any leftovers from 12.6, and there will be some that are associated with our logging effort, will supersede all the issues here. But this is listed on the issue that I opened that summarize all the milestone issues. So let's start with the first one, time filter for the logs view. Okay, so this is about adding this time picker here. It marks as ready for development, so I assume we don't have any other discussions around it. The second issue is actually the ability to drill into the log explorer on a specific time frame. So we need to make sure we are passing the time frame parameters. And by the way, those two issues are critical for our triaging flow. So triage to minimal. We discussed this several meetings ago. And so those two issues are critical to be in for that epic to be completed, or not completed, at least to get started with epic. Third issue, added Dropbox for metrics on the environment tab. So as you probably know, .com works really slow. So we want to visualize our metric on the infrastructure, on the environment tab. So this issue is about adding the dropdown for the metrics. And the first metric is the CPU. So we've discussed the visualization, the color palette, and it is also marked as ready for development. So I assume we don't have any other discussion that need to be clear before the implementation. Next issue. So that was the issue. The next one is here. My God. So slow.
Come on, Doug. You need to get better internet, man.
No, I don't think. Yeah. Okay, so the dropdown I have complete, and this is also marked as ready for development. We need to make sure it will look like this with the option to search with the search bar on them. So yeah. Other one is adding a tooltip. Let's open a few in a row. So a tooltip for the infrastructure dashboard. So this dashboard that I showed you previously, when we hover over it, we want to make sure that we are seeing, besides the name of the pod, we want to see the metric that we choose. So if we're choosing CPU and we're hovering over this pod, we'll see the name and we'll see the value of the metric of the CPU. Questions?
Yeah, I've got a question on that. If you look at the pipeline, we normally don't switch over to a pipeline, but if you look at a pipeline in the left or right-hand column, it's usually got like, it's usually the Department of Redundancy department, where it's got like two, you know, there's a name of the thing and then the name of the things up in the tooltip or whatever. Would it be non-obvious if we took production off of that tooltip right there and just put the pod name, since we're already in the production drop down? Because some of these pods, like, you know, cause screen undulations if they're too wide, so they would just.
I think it makes sense. I'm not sure if we can do it, if we need to do it in this, if we can do it in the same iteration, like in the same MR, if we're already there and it's easy to do. I think it makes sense to remove the production, because you're right, we already have production here. It doesn't make sense production. We have like a bracket here. We should have like the name, status, and the value, and the value. Yeah. So this is the name, status, and then the value. We can try edit it to the same issue, but if it doesn't make sense, we can break it into multiple. I think it's easy to fix, but I'll add this comment. I'll add that comment here and see if we can do it in the same MR. Yeah, good comment. Thanks.
I should just go in and comment on that. I need to comment on some others above it. So.
Okay, you can comment here and we can ask if whoever gets assigned to that, we can ask if we can do it together or if we need like a separate. Cool, thanks. Okay, so this one, actually we still have some discussions around it, and I would like the team opinion. So the idea here is, when you configure a custom metrics, you need to go to a page to add to a different page under Prometheus, manage, I think, and add custom metric, and you define it, and then you go back to the dashboard to see how it looks. And I was thinking of maybe we can add a link here to add metrics. So from here, you'll go directly to that page. Now, the comment in the issue, when we discussed with Emilia, she mentioned maybe we should do it on the model itself, So when you click on the edit metric, you will get the actual model, and here you will update everything. You hit the save, and you're done. And
we probably shouldn't put it on probably shouldn't put it on all of them, but because the adding ones are only for custom metrics, so that would be down. You know, when you listed a custom metric, you'd probably want to have that button on a custom metric, but that would call out those things as custom metrics as well when you're looking at those.
Okay, right. Okay, I wasn't thinking about that. So only on the custom metric dashboard. Yeah, I think you're right. We should comment here. And the second thing that I ask, I mean, if we work on this in iteration, would it make sense to first like provide a link to the custom metric page, and only afterward like complete the entire thing? So this will be like the final stage. The final stage will be when you click on this, you will see this pop up. You will put all your details here. You hit save. You go back here. While the original discussion, the original issue that I opened said, let's just for now provide a link to that page here. So the question is, do we need to do it in iteration, like just provide a link, or, so this is not the right, this is not the right page, but basically just provide a link to the custom metric form, or should we do it?
Well, there's already a link on that page for that, for add metric. If you scroll up and click on that, or yeah, or there where the green is.
Or you're talking about?
Well, I think, but that's for adding metrics, not for editing it. I think that'll always give you like a brand new, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't have a problem with just starting out with just hitting edit metric and then it takes us over to that page. I had left a comment in the issue. We had done that same approach for the add metric, actually for the add metric button. Like when we first implemented that, it just kicked you over to that page instead of leaving you on the dashboard, which is not a problem. It's a great first iteration. Let's break it down, keep it simple. I was just highlighting that we'll want to get it out of that state as pretty quickly because we did have some customer feedback on that the user experience was really confusing and they, it was a difficult thing to figure out what happened, and why they're getting kicked out and over somewhere else when they're, doing the interaction from the dashboard page, which, is fair. But like I said, low level of shame, let's iterate, get something that works. And, I think it still adds value. So, might as well go that way. And then, oh yeah, so there's my comment. But just as long as we know that the definition of done for this issue is that it's all there on the metrics dashboard, I think we should be fine, just as long as we don't, lose sight of this and then end up like
absolutely
4 and 5 milestones down the road and it's still kind of redirecting users over there.
Absolutely. There will be like one iteration for implementing the button with the redirection link, and the other iteration will be just to implement this thing, this
absolutely
the model design.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I'm with you on that one as well. Great. Continue. Add support for stack column chart, straightforward, I think. Allow large number of environment to be displayed in the environment dropdown. I think also straightforward. Okay, this was weird. I'm incognito and I still see this. Okay, I know why, because I'm signed in. Okay, sorry about that. Set up alerts on an empty chart in the metric dashboard. Yeah, there is a little bit of ongoing discussion here. The issue described the fact that you cannot set up alert when the chart is empty. And I mean, let's assume that I'm defining a metric, data is not arrived, or for a week something was done. I don't see any. I don't see the setting up of alert. Now the discussion here with Nadia and Emilia discussed whether we should always put the set alerting on the chart, or only when we are waiting for data, because there could be like connectivity problem or configuration problem, and you need to fix them first before setting up an alert. And I think actually that we should always have this button. Okay, so again, there could be a scenario when I've set up an alert and something happened, the connection broke and there's no data, and then I lose sight of this alert. I don't know if I've defined the alert or not.
Yeah, there's a little bit of inside baseball associated with this, because I do know that we look at the metric information that comes back. Is that right?
Okay.
Raj? Do we look at the metric information that comes back to get the metric to assign the alert to, or does it maybe it's defined from the dashboard? I'll take that back. I'm not 100% sure. But it seemed like there was a thing where we used the data, used some component of the data that came back to get that alert ID, or the Prometheus metric
Alert
ID.
path.
Metric ID. What was that, Diraj?
Oh no, I was just saying that I think we look for an attribute called alert path to see if there's an alert, I guess. I don't know if that answers your question, David.
I just want to make a comment that there might be some yak shaving associated with getting all the data into the thing that we need, and we do need to have the ability to say, we're not getting any metrics back from this source. Do we really need to be banging on it all the time? Every time we refresh this page, because there's a lot of, we request Prometheus to give us back data for everything, every time, and a lot of these metrics don't return stuff like the one about ingress version 16 versus regular new ingress or whatever. So that's different from this.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that I don't mind just for us to start working on that, to say, okay, when there is a configuration or connectivity problem, let's not put add more button which allow you to set up an alert on the chart. But I do see, I can argue that we need this in spite of this issue, but just,
I agree.
I mean, but just for keeping this issue, we can start working on, maybe work on an MVC. I'll say, okay, when we are just waiting for data and we don't see it on the chart, let's make sure users will be able to set up an alert. And if there is a connectivity or configuration problem, for now, let's not do that. But I think that it deserves like another revision when we'll implement this. Maybe we'll add it as well, because in a normal solution, monitoring solution, the alerts defined on the fly. You set up the metric, and while you're setting up the metric, you can set up the alert as well. You don't wait for the alert to come, the data to come to set up the alert. You don't care if there is a connectivity or configuration problem. You'll fix that afterward. You need to make sure the alerts are there the second data is entering the system. So
yeah, I like the ability to be able to set those alerts up, because a lot of times, you set up an alert and then you don't even see it on the page if the data didn't come in. So I think that satisfies the law of least astonishment. It's astonishing when you don't see the ability to do alerts because there was some problem with the data or something.
I think
so. What I'm yeah, go ahead.
If that's the case, Dove, I think maybe we should go with what you were proposing in your latest comment on the issue, to allow the setting up of an alert whenever there's no data for whatever reason, regardless of whether it's a connection issue or configuration problem. And then I think we should do some solution validation around it, some testing with the users to see if our assumptions will be confirmed. But if that's the expectation, to be able to stop an alert on the fly without waiting for the data to come in, I think perhaps we should do that. And I think it's a fairly low risk decision probably, because, if we allow that, it's probably better to do that rather than create an obstacle for our users.
Yeah, the only problem that I see, as David mentioned, we are waiting for some data, because when you define an alert, there is a drop down and you see the metric name. If you have a configuration problem or a connection problem at the beginning, you probably won't even get the metric name, which means you won't be able to define the alert. So some data need to, or at least some pieces of information need to come back from Prometheus. I'm not sure what. But what I'm saying is, if we have this information, we don't want to hide this button from our users. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with that.
Okay. So basically, let's put this button whenever it's possible to put it. And I accept that there will be some scenarios where we won't be able to add this button there because we don't know what's the data. But this is definitely something that eventually we'll need to sort somehow.
Yes, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. Any concern, Diraj or David, with this proposal?
None for me.
No, all good for now.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Support auto-scaling unit based on graph chart. Is Ruben's here?
He is not going to be able to attend.
Okay. Okay, I think if I remember correctly, it's just to support that the data will be populated. I mean, the exile or the unit of the exile will basically make sense. Gigabyte or gigabyte and beyond, and so I think it's fairly easy, at least something that I can fairly understand, and everyone can. I don't see any problem with this issue being ready for development or something.
I think the key here is units. So to make sure that the units are set in scale. Cool.
Yeah. Jose, can you explain this issue?
It's a technical dev issue. It's pretty much because of an issue that was addressed in this milestone, which is pretty much changing the requirement of a view component property from true to false and update some tests. I just created this technical dev issue as to iterate upon that. It should be fairly easy.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay. Yeah, so this is the front-end issue to duplicate the common metric dashboard. And the backend is being worked by Nicolaj. And basically it is this button here, this action here, and that will duplicate the dashboard. Okay, I think it's ready for development, and I don't think we have any other concern around it, at least for a technical implementation standpoint.
That one's being worked on by Hoarder, and I think Mickey and I have been reviewing that.
Okay, that's a.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a APM issue. I mean, it relates to Prometheus, but Hoarder has been working. He opened the issue. He has an MR that's close to being done.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't think there's much we need to do on that one.
Okay, good to know. So 1, 2, and 3. The last 3. Okay, this was opened by Miguel. I think this is just a documentation issue. No instructions, deploy board, right? This is just documentation issue spun out of this. Okay. Okay. So today, when we work on the backend for cloning a dashboard, we clone only the dashboard without custom metrics. So I would like to extend the ability to clone a dashboard with the custom metrics. Okay.
So you're saying convert custom metrics to a custom dashboard, essentially?
Essentially, I mean, once the clone of a dashboard will get implemented, apparently it will just take the common metrics, the YML file, without the custom metric. And this is not really duplicate dashboard. This is not really doing what it needs to do. This is not right. This is not a well-defined action. When we say we clone a dashboard, I think it means that we need to clone all the metrics in the dashboard on the chart. So today, once the front end will be implemented, it will be without the custom metric. Basically, I want us to extend the ability. So I assume this is a backend issue because the front end doesn't need change.
Yeah,
it's still the same button.
It would be a backend issue. So right now the implementation is that basically this action looks for the template YML file and without checking for the database if the custom metrics are defined. So the next step is to take this action and check to the database if there are custom metrics and somehow inject those custom metrics into the YML file, which is being created as a result of this action.
Cool. Thank you for that. Okay, and this is, I think this is the issue, like the large issue that Miguel is working on. What should we present when we have no data, timeout, connection failure, or configuration required? I think I put a comment here. If we should have like 4 issues or only 1 issue with 4 MRs. I really don't have preferences, so it's up for whoever gets assigned.
Yeah, I think the plan currently is to start with the general no data state, and that way we at least have something, and then we can iterate and add those other pieces in. So, yeah, so we're going to iterate on it and start with just the general no data state, and then we'll add each of the different states: timeout, connection fail, connection required as we go. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll span multiple milestones, but it will have multiple iterations, and maybe it spans a milestone or 2. You know, I don't know. We'll see depending on how quickly that goes. But yeah.
As long as things are clear and you guys can start working on the issues, then it's fine with me.
Yeah, I'll leave a comment there in the issue so it's documented for everyone.
Yeah. Cool. I think that was the last one. Yeah. Okay. So only 17 issues because, as I mentioned, I know that Christmas holiday is coming, a lot of vacations. So I'm aiming for a lighter version and a lighter iteration. Okay.
You didn't mention in that last issue about the no data states, and this is what do we do when there's not sufficient time data associated with you know, like if I requested 7 days and there's only 1 day.
If you request 7 days, there's 1 day, you will see like just that 1 day, no?
Right. It'll look like you got the whole time frame, right? But if I ask, and I'm just saying this from a, if I ask Grafana or New Relic or Datadog to give me 7 days worth of data, and it's only got 1 day of data, it's going to show me like 1/7 of the graph
okay.
full. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so I think this is like
That's a different. That's a
separate,
totally different.
a different issue and a valid issue. I wasn't aware of this. So if you have an example, a screenshot, or even an environment to link.
Yeah, I'll make an issue for that. I'm derelict in my duty. I've seen it.
Yeah,
And said,
or
we need to change
if
that.
you have an environment that has like only 1 day of data, point it into my direction, and I can open the issue, capture screenshots and everything, and we can.
Yeah, I can
we
do
can
that.
work on that. Yeah, it's a different issue, but yeah, valid one.
Tangential to this one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so as we were going through, I took some notes, so I don't know if that's helpful. If there's some things we probably should have all of those in the issues, not in this document. So, but I copied them here just so we wouldn't forget to do that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we definitely need to put them on the issue for sure, and we need to make sure we are updating the summary if we have some sort of a decision. Because I find it very hard, when I'm working on an issue and we come to a consensus, then it can take me like a week or 2 weeks to go over it. I mean, some of the issues that I went with you today even are issues that I've covered like 2 weeks ago and I never touched them. So I also sometimes forget doing that, but let's try to make sure that once issues we reach a consensus, let's first like put a comment that you've updated the issue, so we know that the issue is updated, and update the issue. And I'll do it, and if you can do it as well, each of you can do that, it will be very helpful.
One thing though, I'm not sure if the David comment about the time ranges is related to the cloning issue or the some issue after that.
It's not related. It's not related to any issue. It's not related to any issue. It's an issue by itself. It's an issue by itself. It's an issue by itself. We should open the issue. We should explain the problem, and we should scope it, and then we need to assign it to an iteration that we decide.
Sure. Thanks for clarification.
Yeah, thanks. I also noticed that a lot of them didn't have the ready for development label, so we should take a look at those. I put a link to the workflow board in here. Of the 17, absolutely. I don't know, maybe 10 of them didn't have that. I'm guessing that's not accurate. So we should probably just go through and make sure that things are ready today or tomorrow, just to make sure we don't have any other questions and just get them into the right state. So I just put that note in here as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a good comment. Yeah, let's make sure to have this, because when I'm planning the milestone, if I see like a workflow that is planning breakdown or something like that, I will move it for the next iteration. So if we want to make sure that those issues are in the iteration and we don't have any more discussion around it, at least not in the implementation part, let's label them as ready for development. It will make my life easier. And also it will make your life easier, because you won't start working on an issue in the milestone and eventually realize that you don't have all the data. And I think it's important. Cool. Thanks. Yes. So the next announcement is that apparently all features in Monitor are moving to core. This is the Epoch. We got the approval from Sid, and yeah, this is the Epoch, and you can see the Sid comment. Okay, so here, this is where Sid comment that he approved that, which means that we will move all of them to core. What does it mean? It means that I'll need to create an issue for each one of those each one of those areas. Probably make this this is an epic. I'll open issues. Let's move this, let's move that, and we will schedule them, you know, in an iteration. We won't make them all of them in the same in the single iteration. We will spread it across multiple iteration, obviously. And if we need to break it even down even further, we'll do that. So I expect that we'll start seeing those issues at 12.8. Any questions or concern around that move?
I have no concerns. I think it's a great step. I think it'll make the monitoring more visible and get more visibility, more customers. So that's great.
Oh, good.
Makes development easier to, when you
Yeah, that's what.
You know, flipping back and forth between E and not.
Yeah. So I just had a question, since I haven't been through this, is how, like, what is the process, or what is the coding changes that are going to be needed? Do we have, like, do we just do checks to see what the environment or what the status is of the customer, whoever's using it, and then allow it or not? I don't know if someone who's been here can answer that.
That's my understanding. Yeah, I think we have license checks that we do before we render stuff out. Some of that, I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it for Monitor specifically. I don't know if that's happening on the back end. I think most of it happens on the back end. Although there may be some front end stuff as well if we're passing that through that way. But the actual tools that we have for doing that are in Ruby, so it'll definitely involve at least back end, if not back end and front end, to make it happen. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I just wasn't sure. That's kind of what I was thinking was going on. I just haven't looked into that license stuff yet.
There are a couple of features, I think. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, I had one question regarding this. So now that all these features are going to go to core, so which means we're going to have more user interaction, more user volume, I guess. So should we revisit all the telemetry stuff so that we're, you know, capturing the right metrics and we have enough data? Because there's a great opportunity, right? We're going to have increased user volume, user activity volume. So just go through all the actions. Are we really tracking everything from an instrumentation perspective and get those things straight before we release it to the wild, I guess? I don't know what your thoughts are about this.
Yeah, I think personally, I think that regardless if we have a large user volume or not, we need to capture all the telemetry that is possible. So I'm trying to be on top of that. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes I'm forgetting. But ideally, every new feature that we implement should have a follow-up MR or an issue on capturing the relevant metric around it. I think this is an important piece of information that we need to know in order to make our product work better. So I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, that's actually a really exciting change. I think even just with more people invested in it, we might even see like an uptick in community contributions, or, you know, that would be an ideal situation as well. As if people are invested in it and care about it, we may be able to leverage that as well, which would be great for, you know, velocity and getting there faster. But
yeah. Cool. I think we reached the end of the issues that we had, at least that I have.
Okay, does anyone else have any things they would like to talk about, issues or questions?
I actually have one for Adrian on the logging part. I guess that's the elephant in the room, at least for the one that the people that were involved in the discussions. So, Adrian, you want to give some background and status?
Sure. You talking about the big MR that was in progress, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. So that's done. That's actually merged a couple hours ago. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So it was pretty good. We finally found a middle ground, and yeah, took a day or two to finalize, and it's now good to go. And so that was blocking another MR of mine, and I think one of Miguel's. And so this is now unblocked, and we can start really working on features, I guess.
Okay. Do you think we'll have enough content so we'll be able to release the log explorer, not in this iteration, but in the end of 12.7?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, it's good to know. Great. Well, that's what
I mean, in terms of code and adding the features, I think it's probably going to be pretty straightforward. The only thing I'm a bit worried about is refreshing automatically, because there's some architecture changes that we need to do, and I think David has been looking into that. But in terms of just adding the drop downs and the filters, that should be pretty easy now that we have the new API. So
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was planning on turning on timestamps as well for that, which will fit in with I think including or doing the searches based on timestamps or whatever. So I think that'll get us prepared for that.
Good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, just a kind of discussion about the discussion. It was there's a lot of back and forth with maintainers about small iterations and providing enough context. Adrian and others were trying to break things down, rightly so, into a small iteration, and the maintainers were having some confusion about what the end goal was. So I think a thing we can learn from that is just to make sure we're being very explicit in kind of what each MR covers, the issue it's relating to, and making sure that we have not just kind of what this iteration is, but also kind of what the next steps are going to be after this. I think that would have helped. I don't know, Adrian, if you disagree, but
no, I agree. I think one of the things that was blocking the review is just that differences in wanting a bigger MR with a lot of refactorings and making it perfect right away, versus smaller merge requests that are not perfect but that are moving forward progressively. And so if you can have that context and make it explicit that it's not perfect, but here's the plan and here's what we want to do in the end directly in the issue, then I think that would help communicate your intent better, and so avoid those kind of discussions.
okay. Yeah, thank you for working through that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay, great. Anything else people have for today? We're almost out of time, but if not, then have a good rest of the day, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.